I'll be honest with you, we have not made that decision. There are a number of things that, there are a number of options. It could be that once we determine on how to resolve your claim, we walk away from that. We give you the value of what we agree upon, and you remain in possession of that property. It may be that we take possession of the property and try to sell it, presumably, and we're hoping sooner rather than later, that the evacuation order will be lifted and people will start to be able to move back into their homes. We understand that people don't want to live in a ghost town where you have 4 or 5 abandoned houses on the street that become blighted property, and we're not going to let that happen. We will figure out something either by letting you keep the property, letting you move the home off of it if you want, or even taking possession and then turning around and trying to sell those homes once the evacuation order is lifted and people are moving back in. I just can't answer that tonight. Yes, sir.
Sir, can y'all, you say some questions you can't answer. Can you answer these 3 questions? Can you admit that y'all screwed up? Can you admit that you're sorry? And can you admit that you do everything you can to help us out? Well,
I'm not going to admit that we screwed up because I'm a lawyer and I don't do that. I will tell you that we are sorry that the situation arose, and we're doing everything within our power to resolve it, not only to try to make sure that the evacuation order is lifted and that you are able to move back in your homes and that they are safe when you move back in, will continue to be safe. And those of you who don't want to do so, we're going to attempt to resolve all of the claims. For those of you who don't want to move back into your homes, that's the purpose of this process, is to try to resolve it, and we're doing everything we think within our power to do that. Yes, sir.
Now, for those of us who have decided, or we, for the time being anyhow, we decided we want to stay, we certainly feel we're entitled to some type of compensation for our diminished property value. Therefore, should we go ahead and fill out the forms, request an appraisal of our properties?
At some point in time, I think, yes. I mean, to resolve, this is what we're trying to do. We think that the response, we think, is getting to the point where we've focused from the beginning, responding to the orders of the state and trying to do everything we can to stabilize the situation and gather the scientific evidence necessary to allow the state and the parish to lift the evacuation order. And we're at a point now where we think we can't do everything at one time. So from a priority standpoint, those people who want to be bought out, that's what we're going to work on first. Resolution of all those other claims will come along. The problem that we have with calculating the diminution of value is that that necessarily involves a pre-sinkhole value and a post-sinkhole value. And right now, now that the fact that you can't move back into your home right now, it almost is pointless to try to put a value on that home now. So once I think it will be a better time to evaluate those claims after the evacuation order is lifted, unless it drags out too long, then we'll reassess that. But
you do realize, though, quite a few residents have actually never evacuated and are still residing in their homes.
I understand that, yes, sir.
Okay, I have a question on this settlement that you, or on this form that you want to fill out. You're telling me that for my stress and my inconvenience, I need to put it on that form and give it to you?
Yes, ma'am.
The amount I think I'm entitled to?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Are the settlements going to continue even after the evacuation is lifted? Or is that going to be, okay, it's safe to go back and tell you?
Well, as long as there's litigation and lawyers representing people, that litigation is going to go on until it's resolved one way or the other. So the answer to that is we will continue to try to resolve all claims that resulted from the development of the sinkhole and the evacuation order. regardless of whether you can move back in or not. I mean, I understand that there will be claims for diminution of value once the evacuation order is lifted and people move back in. But it may be that your home has not lost any value. I mean, we don't know that, and we won't know that until
We can't sell our homes right now.
well, right now, I understand that you believe your home is worth zero now, but if you're moved back in 6 months, then it may be a different situation, and we just need to let the appraisers to do that. And I will say, one of the things that will probably happen with those of you who are represented by lawyers, your lawyers will probably retain their own appraisers to do the same, to work with our appraiser to try to come to evaluation. And certainly any of you who don't have a lawyer, who want to have your own appraiser, feel free to do that and provide that information to us. In fact, one of the things on the forms that we ask you to do is to provide us with certain documents if you have them, and one of those is a recent appraisal. If somebody, for example, refinanced their home 6 months before the sinkhole developed and the evacuation order was issued, and you have an appraisal for that, we would like to see it, because that gives us kind of an idea of where, an idea of how to evaluate your claim. Yes, ma'am.
I'm one of the ones that want to stay. And is there at some point a possibility that we could get something in writing from Texas Brine stating what they're going to do with the properties that they do buy out? Because I don't want to have an empty lot next door and Texas Brine owns it, and next thing I know, there's going to be a flare put in on that lot. That makes a big difference in our decision to stay or whatever. But I would want it in writing.
I'll have to think about that one. I think each of you who have a claim, there will be settlement documents that are prepared. And I think that we can probably accommodate pretty much any request like that within the context of a document where you settle your claim under these conditions, and if they change, then you have the right to pursue an additional claim. Yes, sir.
Go along with me on the scenario. Let's say that the evacuation was lifted 18 months after it was imposed. That obviously is beyond the normal 12-month statute of limitations for filing suit. If we can't reach an agreement on diminution of value at that point, in other words, after 18 months, doesn't that just kind of leave us high and dry?
That's like kind of almost like a law school exam. The answer to that is, and I don't want to give this caveat, as most lawyers will do, and accountants are even worse than lawyers. This is not legal advice, but I believe that I don't believe your claim would be barred if that's the situation. Now, that having been,
When you say claim, you mean suit?
that's right. Yeah, I mean, you would still in Louisiana there's a 1-year prescriptive period or statute of limitations which require people to file suit within a year of an accident. An automobile accident happens today, you've got 1 year from today to file a lawsuit. There's a doctrine called continuing torts that would probably apply in that situation, but if that becomes a concern of yours, you should certainly consult a lawyer and get his advice or her advice on that.
I have a clarifying question about Pam's question about the flare in the vacant lot next door. If there is a subdivision property restriction, I presume that when Texas Brine acquired the property, I presume that Texas Brine would comply with the deed restriction.
My understanding is anybody who obtains or purchases property becomes a homeowner in a subdivision that has property, legal property restrictions. Obviously, there are some that are prohibited by law, but if it is a legal property or property restriction, Texas Brine or anybody else owns the property, they're obligated to follow those restrictions.
More particularly, if you're in a subdivision that requires a house of a particular size and type, then presumably you can't put up a flare.
That's one of those questions that it's so specific that I'm gonna have to defer until it actually, let's talk about that when it actually happens. I mean, one of the problems, and I'm happy to stand up here as long as you want to answer hypothetical questions, but there are so many different facts and circumstances that could arise that it's almost impossible to answer those in the abstract. And I can give you general concepts, but it's very difficult to answer a specific question without actually facing an actual factual situation. Yes, ma'am.
So what happens after they do the 3D imaging and they determine that it's too dangerous for anyone to live there? And that's supposed to be at the end of next month? So what's gonna happen to everybody then?
I don't know if we can answer that. I can't predict. All I can do is give you my speculation as to what would happen. I'm not sure anybody can answer that question now. I think we need to wait until the 3D comes in, and I think we're hoping, obviously, that that's not the case. But if that is the case, then the state and the parish, through President Trish, will certainly take the appropriate action to protect everyone's interests.
I have one other question. Okay, some of these homes are actually empty, and some of the people are not going back to their homes, keep their grass cut, what have you, or maintain their lawn, so to speak, and you're gonna have snakes, rodents, and what have you. Is there anywhere in there that maybe we could get this ordered, that somebody goes in and keeps it down for the ones that are staying back there?
My understanding is nobody's supposed to be staying back there, but I appreciate that there are those that are, and I think that's something that the parish needs to address. Again, that's if that's happening now,
It's happening now.
then listen, we will talk about, I think, maybe talk with Mr. Boudreaux or somebody and see if there's something that can be done about that. And I'm sure they'll ask for our input into that kind of situation. Yes, sir.
So, the questions they're asking you and your answers, that you're implying you better get along, is that correct?
I'm not gonna suggest one way or the other whether you should or you shouldn't.
I mean, that's a simple question. You know,
Well, I think that's an individual answer. I don't, I don't want to let me just put it this way, I don't want to discourage you from getting a lawyer. I have plenty of lawyers who represent plaintiffs and they're friends of mine, and they're good lawyers, but if the question really is, from our perspective is if you don't want a lawyer and you've made that decision, then we're able to talk to you. If you're unsure, then I suggest you think about it, maybe consult with some friends who have lawyers and some who don't have lawyers, or wait until we finish this first round of appraisals and see what people think about our ability to resolve those claims. But I'm not gonna suggest one way or the other way you should get a lawyer. I'm just not gonna do it. I'm not gonna answer that question. That's an unfair question to me because it's speculation. I don't know what I would do. I really don't. I'm not in your situation. I can understand and empathize with your situation, but I'm not in your situation. And the way I would react, if I was in fact in your situation, may be the same or different than yours. So I think whatever I would do would be irrelevant to your decision.
right, but you're aware that the selling of properties in that area is very infrequent because people stay there because they like it there.
That's right, and that is certainly a factor that will have to be taken into account. Any offer that's made to resolve your claim, we'll certainly have to take that into account. And I suspect that you won't let us resolve your claim without taking that into account.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
also,
Go ahead.
also you was comparing a $200,000 home to a $50,000 trailer. And so that means that the $200,000 home is gonna be less value, right?
It's based upon, it is what it is. I mean, the fair market value of the home is what it is based upon the comparables. And I don't want to speculate on whether it's be more or less valuable. It's more or less valuable. It was more or less valuable before the sinkhole based upon a $200,000 home being next to a $50,000.